Welcome to the Explainer. All right, today we're tackling a massive challenge in the IT world. How do you give your team the freedom to work from literally anywhere, but also keep your organization's data completely locked down and secure? We're going to look at the modern tools Windows gives us to solve that exact problem.
This really gets to the heart of the matter. This is the essential puzzle every IT pro is trying to solve right now. How do you enable that work from anywhere culture without, opening up a huge can of worms when it comes to security? So, how do you actually pull this off? So, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by looking at the tools you already have in your toolbox. Then we'll peek under the hood at the different VPN protocols. After that, we'll get to the main event, Always On VPN. I'll even show you a basic blueprint for getting it deployed. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with a quick cheat sheet so the most important stuff really sticks. First up, let's open up that toolbox and see what Windows actually offers for remote access. Because, as you'll see, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. So Windows gives you a few different ways to tackle this. You've got your traditional VPN, right? The one where the user has to click a button to connect. Then there are things like work folders, which are great for just syncing files, and the web application proxy for publishing specific web apps. But really, the modern standard, the one we're going to zero in on today for that seamless experience, is right there at the bottom, Always On VPN. Okay, so to really understand how this all works, we've got to pull back the curtain a little bit on the tech that makes it possible, the VPN protocols. You can think of these as the different engines that can power your secure connection. At its core, the whole idea of a VPN is actually beautifully simple. It just creates this private, encrypted tunnel for your data to travel through the public internet. It's like having your own secret highway where no one else can see your traffic. Now, the protocol you choose makes an enormous difference. On the modern end, you have IKv2. This is pretty much the gold standard today. It's super secure, and this is the important part, you can manage it with modern tools like Intune. Then, way down at the other end of the spectrum, you have PPTP. It's old, it's not secure by today's standards, and you should really avoid it if at all possible. Okay, so you've probably seen that automatic setting in the Windows VPN client, right? Ever wonder what it's actually doing in the background? It's not just picking one at random, that's for sure.
Well, it's actually pretty smart. It has this built-in priority list, like a waterfall. Windows will first try to connect using the best and most secure protocol, which is IKv2. If for some reason that fails, it'll fall back and try SSTP. If that doesn't work, it tries L2TP. And only as a very last resort will it try to connect using the least secure one, PPTP. It's a clever way to make sure you get connected one way or another.
All right, now for the main event. Let's talk about Always On VPN. This is the technology that really defines modern remote access in the whole Windows world. And it's the modern successor to an older technology some of you might remember called Direct Access. This slide really tells a story, doesn't it? It shows the evolution from the old way to the new way. Direct Access, on the left, was great in theory, totally seamless, but it was famously a nightmare to set up. Always On VPN delivers that exact same amazing user experience, but it's way easier to deploy, supports more devices and Windows versions, and, this is a big one, it's managed with modern tools. So what's the big deal? What really makes this thing tick? Well, for starters, it's automatic and persistent. The user doesn't have to do anything. And here's the game changer for IT folks. It can connect before the user even signs in. That is huge for managing remote devices. It also plays nicely with all the modern security stuff like MFA and conditional access. You can even get granular and filter traffic. The only real catch, it is for Windows 10 and 11 only. Okay, so maybe you're sold on the idea, but what do you actually need to get this thing up and running? Let's take a look at the blueprint for deployment. The good news here is you probably have a lot of this stuff already running in your environment. Besides your basic Active Directory and DNS, you just need three main server roles. You need a network policy server, or NPS. Think of it as the bouncer for your network. You need a certificate authority to hand out certificates so everyone trusts each other. And, of course, you need the remote access server gateway itself, which is the front door for all your VPN connections. All right, this diagram is perfect. It shows you exactly how all these pieces fit together. Let's actually trace the path of a connection, step by step, to see how it all works in harmony. So it all begins out there on the internet. Imagine your user is at a coffee shop or in their home office. Their Windows machine kicks off a connection request and sends it to your remote access VPN server, which is sitting safely in your perimeter network.
Now, here's where the design gets really, really smart from a security perspective. The VPN server on the edge doesn't actually decide who gets in. It's just the bouncer at the door. It takes that request and passes it deep inside your network to your NPS server. That's the server that does the real work of checking the user or device credentials against Active Directory. This separation is fantastic because your core authentication service isn't directly exposed to the internet. So once the NPS server gives the green light, it sends a message back to the VPN server saying, yep, this user is legit, let him in. The VPN server then builds that secure, encrypted tunnel right back to the client machine. And just like that, the user's on the corporate network and can get to all their internal files and applications.
Whew, okay, we have covered a ton of ground. Let's boil it all down into one final cheat sheet with the absolute must-know facts, especially if you're, studying for an exam or a certification.
All right, first thing. If you remember nothing else from this explainer, remember this. Always On VPN is the modern replacement for direct access. Same seamless feel, but with a much more flexible and modern architecture. Okay, this next one is a classic exam question, a total trap. You do not manage Always On VPN with group policy. I'll say it again, you cannot use group policy. It's built for modern management, which means you have to use tools like Intune, Configuration Manager, or PowerShell.
Next up, you gotta remember its limitations. This is a Windows-only feature. It's fantastic for your Windows 10 and 11 devices, but if you need to connect Macs, iPhones, or Android devices, you're still going to need a more traditional VPN client for them.
And finally, let's talk about its superpower. The thing that really makes it special for IT admins is that pre-logon connection. The ability for a device to connect to the corporate network before a user even signs in is what lets you manage, update, and patch those remote machines effectively. It's a huge deal. And there you have it. That's our deep dive into modern remote access with Always On VPN. We've covered the what, the why, and the how. So the only question left is the one right there on your screen. Is your network truly ready for this new, always-on era?